So this improvisation composition is based on the CAGED system. This is what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to explain how you can use it in order to improvise and compose your own music. And we should start from the basics first. So we have the 5 shapes that build the CAGED system, which are the shapes of the C major chord, A major chord, right, C, A, G major chord, E major chord, and a D major. And by the way, you have the minor options of the same chords. Let's do them over C as well. So you have C minor, kind of a more rare way of playing it. And then you have A minor, G minor, another kind of rare way to play it. And then we have the E minor and D minor. So if you know the shapes, that's the first step. The next step is to apply the 5 shapes to the same chord. So let's take C and find all these shapes. So you have C major, C shape chord. And the next option across the fretboard is the A major chord, right, which is this one. And if you move it across 3 frets, you get the C major chord, next option, right? And then you're taking the G shape and you move it across, right? It's like a bar chord. And that's the next option for the C chord, G shape. Moving on to E shape, bar, all the way to the 8th fret, and that's a C chord as well. And the last one is a D shape. You treat it as a bar chord, move your index finger all the way to the 10th fret, and you get the C chord. So you have 5 shapes for the same chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I used C major and E minor, so I'm just going to demonstrate E minor across these 5 shapes, chord shapes. So you have the E minor. Now, we begin from E, which means it's not caged, it's CAG or something. So you begin with the shape of an E, but the next one is a D, right? So the D shape over here is this, right? It's a D minor moving 2 frets higher. So then we begin from C, and again C is this kind of shape. And this is probably the time to stress the idea that the CAGED system is more for visualization purposes and less for actually playing it as a chord. You can arpeggiate it. For example, just choose a few of them, and so on. So we are here, which is the C shape, E minor chord. Then we have the A minor shape on the 7th fret. That's the 4th option for E minor, and we are, so let's go back to E, D we've done, C, A, and the last one is G. Again, G minor, over here it's something like that. Bit of a stretch, it is possible, but again, you don't have to. You can play something like that. Okay, so far so good. That's like the basics. And how to actually apply it. What we can do is 2 things. One, expand our expressiveness, let's say, across the fretboard by using 1 chord. And what I mean is we don't just play the chords, we make music with them, right? And music that for us, if you're playing, and that's what I encourage you to do, play everything on 1 guitar, you play rhythm and lead, which means playing arpeggios is already some kind of a melodic way to play chords, right? I mean, you can do this. Oh, that's the right one. But, well, that's definitely one option, but that's limited to rhythm guitar, but again, you can combine everything and compose your music if you play arpeggios and add some melodies to it. And this is what I've done. So I'm kind of linking, finding a note passing tone, we can call it, between one shape to another. And then something like that is more meaningful, right? It's not just, I'm playing here, I'm playing there. No. There's something happening. And then you can find some kind of notes that not necessarily passing, but kind of like little bridges between the chords. Playing around it, right? Yeah. That's one challenge that you can already try, to find a whole kind of movement based on one chord. That's tricky. Like, how can you make it? And the answer is by adding melodies. And, it's kind of establishing a chord in a way, which is, I think, important and fun. But when you bring in the next chord, then you have like a conversation between, two creatures like C major and E minor. And I chose specifically this chord progression because I really love it. And I think it sounds great, and it conveys emotions that I like. So you can do the same thing for E minor. Something like that. So I think it's really fun, like the endless possibilities of how you can play now E minor. It's not just this or that, and C, it's not just this or that. It's everything. Like, treat it as a piano. You have all these options in between. And you're allowed to add notes that are not necessarily related to any scale. The next interpretation for that is to, you have like one chord and then another chord across. And if you think about it more vertically, like the other approach was horizontally, this is vertically. So it's good practically to find the chord or the right shape without moving a lot, which is great for something called voice leading, which I'm not going to get into now. So you have the C major, you have an E minor. You probably know these shapes, right? And that's the cool thing about it. You don't have to move a lot. But now, if you have the knowledge of the other four shapes, then you can apply it to get the rest of the fretboard. So hopefully you can see that the CAGED is just like a trick. It's an idea to expand your knowledge and your expression across the whole fretboard. So the next one, we have a C chord here. The E minor would be either this one, D minor shape, or maybe a C minor shape, which are kind of close and similar. So the next one is C chord G shape, and the nearest, again, there are two options. It could be either this E minor, A minor shape, or again, C minor shape. Or, which is probably the next steps that you can already think about, it's about visualizing which are the right notes. Where are your chord tones, the notes of the chord, that will be your kind of skeleton to the whole piece, if that makes sense. So after that, the next one is the E shape, C. So again, we have that. I think it's like a given that the A minor shape of E minor will be the right one. And the last one is the D shape, C. And the closest is the G minor, like E minor A minor chord, G minor shape. Can be confusing. I got confused at the beginning. Ultimately, again, it's all about visualizing. I'm just using the names just to maybe explain. But if it's just confusing, then just have your notes on a diagram and yeah, just use your visualization. You can definitely, use the CAGED system to improve your fretboard visualization that can help with memorization. So we had the two options, and again, we can link those two. So I kind of did it with some notes around. And again, the cool thing about this is that you're improvising, and again, the approach is to have everything on one guitar. So you don't need the backing track. You give yourself the chord, you're playing the melodies around it. You got everything. You don't need anything. You can then later, expand it to many instruments and so on. Maybe one more thing that is important to mention. There are scales. People use this CAGED system. I think it's mainly chord-based, but they use it to see the connection between the chords and the scales. So let's take, for example, the first chord, C major, and you have the C major scale. So those notes are it's kind of a shortcut, a trick to quickly find the notes that will work, well with the chord. I mean, it will sound great because it's part of the same thing, meaning C major scale or key. So those notes can be there to add a melody or even decorate a chord, enrich it by right. So that's a C major scale and C shape from the CAGED system, if that makes sense. And the same thing here, like if you're moving on to the next one, C, and then you're finding all the notes of C major. Something like that, and get you playing around the chord using the notes. But I don't actually use this and just saying it because it's another option. I think if you know the chords, you can use any scale any scale you want. For example, you don't have to use C major, right? You don't have to limit yourself. You can do like Lydian, or even without even thinking about theory, right? Any random note. Because it doesn't really matter. If you have the chord, you have like the gravity of everything. So it doesn't really matter if you're just playing around C. Anything goes. And then we apply to two different chords, then more interesting and more complex things start to happen. Deliberately making it like less obvious. So again, you have all these chords and all these kind of stations in your journey of your composition, your improvisation. It can be both, right? You can improvise a composition this way, which is what I've kind of done. You can use it to there are more uses, let's say. So hopefully that was helpful and useful. If you need more help with that and other methods to really master the fretboard, to express yourself fully and freely, compose music, that's what I do. So reach out to me, send me a message, comment below. Comment below anyway. Let me know what you think, if it helped or if you have more questions.